Welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today we are talking to Jessica Yarbrough. Jessica is a business strategist for coaches and consultants who want to sell and scale ultra high-end services. And she's on a mission to help entrepreneurs see and own their value so they can make a bigger impact in the world and have financial and time freedom. Jessica, it's rare to always have a fellow San Diego here on the pod. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's exciting. One of the things that I think as I have conversations on the podcast, I think we're reaching over 200. I forgot what number we're at episodes now. And it's really amazing to hear and have a mini masterclass every episode. But then also, most importantly, it's to learn about the journey and not just the struggle, but also understanding what you've gone through to get to this place. Because I think we talk about the 10-year overnight success story. We'd love to learn a little bit more about your journey, your story, and what brought you here.
Absolutely. That feels true. That 10-year overnight success story. It's a journey for sure. My background was in business. I managed companies at a very young age, and I had that ability to go in there and see possibility and fix things that were broken and bring money into the business very quickly. And I actually built a company here in San Diego, a startup company. And it was amazing because when we walked into the company, we literally had nothing. We didn't even have desks. We didn't have computers. We didn't have anything. And we built the company very, very quickly up to an international company. And so that was incredible, but it also was very stressful. I was in my early 20s. I was exhausted. I was on the verge of burnout, and I had a spiritual awakening while I was on vacation and said, I want to do something else. I want to pursue another path in my life. I could see where I was going if I would have stayed with the company, exactly how my life would have unfolded. And I also, for the first time, saw something else. And sometimes I think travel does that. It opens your eyes up to what else is possible and other ways of being. And I walked away from the company, and I spent 4 years traveling with about 13 pounds of stuff on my back. I had my eat, pray, love journey. This is pre-kids.
Yeah, I have to say.
And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I'll always have great stories to tell my grandchildren, if I'm lucky enough to have them one day. But when I finally did settle in and I got pregnant with my daughter, I had a come to Jesus moment. Like, I needed to provide for us financially. And what I was doing at the time was not going to give us that lifestyle. I also had been unemployed now for years, and there was no way I could go back to a traditional 9-to-5 job. I could have easily gotten a marketing job and made a good salary and made a good living, but I knew that it would have crushed my soul. So much to the dismay of my family and everyone else around me, I took the harder path of rolling up my sleeves and building a company from the ground up as a single mother. My daughter is 8 years old today, and we are a 7-figure profit business. So I'm very proud of that because I did do that on my own. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. And I have friends and I work with a lot of people online, and like you work with different types of people, different types of backgrounds. And you also have people who they have kids, or they're starting up, or they want to do this side hustle, they want to grow this service, they want to grow this idea, they want to grow this software. That was very casual, three sentences, and you went from 0 to 7, which is not easy at all. Like, breaking the 7-figure mark is a substantial mark. But tell us a little bit about running and growing in the midst of motherhood, in the midst of taking care, in the midst of everything that's demanded of you as you have multiple hats at home and in the career, in the business.
Honestly, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And I will say, really, the first few years was the hardest. And anybody that startup will understand that, just because you're just trying to get people to pay attention to you. No one knows your name. You want people you have no credibility. You have no history online. You're trying to get people to take a chance on you. And then you couple that with the fact that my daughter was like an infant all the way up to what I consider hardest years from an emotional growth standpoint, which would be like infant to toddler. It continues to be challenging as they get older. But there's some peak years, and then you're broke, you don't have any money, and you really are hustling, right? There's no way around it. You're going to hustle when you're starting a business. You're going to have to go the extra mile. You're going to have to put in the long hours. You're going to have to sacrifice. And I remember that. I remember having friends who would be like, yeah, we're going to the beach, potluck. And I'd be like, nah, I'm working. And it was grueling, and it was hard. And I got through it because I trusted that if I held the vision and I put in the work and I stayed on the path, I knew it was the harder path. I knew that again, the easy way out is to get a job, right? Get a
Yeah.
job, get the payment, whatever. But I also knew that I would hit a ceiling in that job in terms of happiness and fulfillment and also an income. And I knew if I played the long game, that I could have what I wanted. And what I wanted was freedom. I wanted the ability to make as much money as I want, to live life on my terms, to be able to work from anywhere in the world, to, because I've traveled and lived in 4 different countries, to be able to take vacations and be present with my daughter. And I knew that if I went a traditional career route, that it wouldn't get it. And I
Mhm.
feel like so many people lose hope and give up when they're early in that journey. First of all, they either go into fear and don't ever do it,
Start, yeah.
right? Don't ever start. Or the first 1, 2, 3 obstacles that come their way, they're like, up, I'm out. I'm out. This isn't for me. It's listen, it's going to test you. God will test you. And whether you're spiritual or not, life will test you.
How much
You're
you
going to
want it.
be, how much do you want it? And the people that are successful are the ones that are hungry and are willing to do whatever it takes and to realize their vision. And so I think a big part of what people have to realize is there is no snap of a finger and you're on a beach in Mexico on your laptop,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
You're
still
going to
not on a
have
beach in Mexico with my laptop.
still
I
not.
could
It's
be.
actually
Yeah.
it's not fun. Who wants to
Yeah.
work on the beach with your computer, right? The
Yeah.
sun into your eyes, it's all sandy. No, you still are going to have to put in the work, right? Got to roll
Yeah.
up your sleeves, do the work and not be afraid to fail because you are going to fail. You're going to fail and you're going to fail and eventually it'll all click.
Yeah. Failure is a prerequisite to success. And that's the hardest lesson to swallow. And even when
Yeah.
you start, I mean, you're going to do perform poorly, even though you think you're doing your best. And for me, anytime I start something new or I launch, let's say I launch a new, like recently, like a newsletter or like a new
Yeah.
community or new membership, like I know it's my best at this time, but I know 3 months from now, I'm going to be like, ugh, like embarrassed about
Totally.
it. And that's horrible. But
Oh
that's
yeah.
such an interesting point. You also like mentioned that the average person to do something like it's zero point 0.6. People actually don't even, so you have to start first and knowing that it's going to be uh, hard in the beginning. I'm curious to know from your perspective because I've heard the pros and cons. I've also debated it internally myself, just like
Mhm.
where am I? Want the balance, I want the integration, holistic lifestyle, etc. What is your thoughts, just as on a tangent, like on hustle culture and the whole idea of 16 hours, 16 to
Oh,
8, 18 hours? Yeah.
I think hustle culture is toxic. I really do. I feel like you are going to have to work really hard when you're first starting out, but to wear it like a badge of honor, it's
Mhm.
toxic. One of the influencers, I won't say his name, was asked, a big influencer, was asked by one of the listeners, hey, how do you deal with not being home with your kids? And they said, how do you know your kids want to spend time with you? And I was like,
Oh, dang.
is there a more toxic statement than that?
Yeah.
And actually, I'm putting out a YouTube video. It'll probably come out in a couple months. We're really ahead of production
Oh,
schedule
dang.
about why it's toxic. And we live in a society where we have fractured relationships with children and with spouses and with partners and with ourselves, with our health. And hustle culture is not the answer. So, working
Yeah.
smart, working hard, working towards your goal, absolutely. Doing the work, which is the hardest thing,
You have to do it.
but not hustling just to hustle and act like it's cool that you all you do is work.
How do you turn that off? Because I completely agree with you. I think there has to be a balance. And
Mhm.
the fact that statement is like, how do you know they want to hang out with you? Clearly they don't because you're not there. In response to that, I'm like, that sucks. I know for me, so I have a little one running around. He conquers downstairs. That's his little domain. But, I think about this doesn't feel like work, but it's such a huge investment. So I would change like my mindset around it. How do
Mhm.
you change your mindset around it? How do you approach balancing running the company,
Yes.
serving clients, which we'll talk about, but also serving your kids?
My kid and my health. Here's the thing, you can't, for your health, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
right? So people think if like I just push myself, my productivity like diminishes. Like
Yeah.
I know I've got a very short creative window per day. And so I don't know what people think they're accomplishing because if you've ever tried to work when you're tired, it's going to take you 4 times as long to do something. I know it's not productive for me. I will say it's not easy. When you're good at something and you're succeeding, your default is to want to go do more of it because you're
Mhm.
like being rewarded by it. You're like, oh, I'm making money.
The
It's doing good. I'm
dopamine.
getting
Yeah.
the dopamine hit. But you also have to realize you will hit a breaking point and you'll start to see a deterioration. Something's got to give. You cannot do everything at 100%. And you can't do business 100% and expect that's not going to fall somewhere else or weaken some other aspect. So you need to stay in balance, have the right circle of influence, make sure
Mhm.
you have systems and people around you that keep you grounded and focusing on what matters, what's important to you. You need to have clearly defined values to make sure that
Oh
you're
yeah.
not out of alignment. and not just chasing money. I just did another interview and he asked me, what was my perfect day? And they said, afterwards, you didn't say anything about money. And I was like, no, because that's not tied to a great day for me. It's my value in all the ways that I'm impacting the people around me, whether it's in business or relationship or my relationship with myself.
Mm.
That's where the fulfillment comes in. And the money is a byproduct of that.
Yeah, it's not the 100% agree. Tell me, what was the first position you hired? Because I know that in the beginning, we work extremely hard. I remember when I was breaking into the space, waking up as early, not all the time, but 2, 3 a.m. to learn it, do it, sell it, and then work the 9 to 5, and then come
Yeah.
home and build the future relationships. But what were the first positions that you hired to buy back that time?
It's interesting because I went about it in a non-traditional approach, and it was just because the stage of my business. So first did marketing, which I think is very common, right?
Yeah.
I was getting that out, posting content, creation, whatever, lead gen or whatever part done. And then my business kind of exploded
Mm,
and I hired life help. So then I
mm,
had a live-in nanny and all of that. And then I was like, no, I don't like that. But it gave me time to work on my business. So I was like, I
mm,
don't want that. Didn't like that. Got rid of the live-in nanny. And then I was able by that point, because I could spend more time in the business, to then hire client support
mm.
and operations support.
Mhm.
So I kind of went this business to life to business. And
It's
then
the
I
support.
always,
It makes a lot of sense, right? I think that's the number one thing is at the house, making sure that's taken. This is the stuff no one really talks about, to be honest with you, because I have the same situation.
yes,
Okay, have support here so I can be
yes.
more focused and I have to worry. Like that worry is it's a huge drain.
It was, and my daughter was young still at the time, and then
Yeah.
once she got in school, it didn't even really matter, but again, it
Yeah.
wasn't for me, but I tried that. I had personal chefs for years, and now I'm back cooking my own and loving that process, but I might outsource it again sometime when I get too busy. Having house cleaner, I've had people do my laundry. There's so
Yeah.
many things that you can outsource internally, but I focused on the business, then I focused on the house, and then I
Hmm.
realized, okay, let me put more focus on the business because some of these things that I was outsourcing, I actually really enjoyed. I just felt overwhelmed, so
It
I
all.
hire
Yeah.
for when I'm overwhelmed. And now I've got a great team in place, and I really have balance in my life, so I feel like I've got the perfect team assembled,
I
which
love
took a
that.
long time to get to, by the way.
No, 100%. How long did it
Yeah.
take so people have a realistic estimation?
Years.
Yeah.
The people problem is the hardest thing to solve.
It's
It
the number
is.
one
We all
equation.
and we all know the war on talent, great resignation, quite all of that. It is brutal, and you just got to find a needle in the haystack. Those people that are loyal to a T, that see your vision, that align with your values, that are going to do their job, that can operate without micromanaging, because that's not how I operate. People that you can trust, that you can empower, that are going to do their work, and then to keep them and to treat them in the right way, pay them, do things for them, connect them to the bottom line, connect them to
Oh yeah.
everything so that they want to stay. I'm taking my whole team on a all-inclusive wellness retreat. I'm so excited about in
Nice.
April, and it's phenomenal. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have had a boss that
Bonus.
did this for me. But it's
Oh,
key to keeping great people, because they'll go somewhere else. They leave companies all the time.
100%, especially the best talent, they have options. And it's the way that I found it when leading teams and individuals is like you're almost like their coach,
Mm-hmm.
like
Totally.
in a lot of different aspects. And that's on top of everything that you're already doing. Not that it's a bad thing, it's a beautiful investment, it's a beautiful support to help someone else thrive, but it is not something you just hire and okay, peace. We'll see you in the quarterly review or whatever.
No, because then they won't do their work anyway, or they're not going to build it the right way. They've got to be integral. And so I've grown a lot. I will say that I remember I was such a bad leader in my 20s. I can
I
look
mean,
back
aren't
and
we
be
all?
like,
Yeah.
God, it was terrible, but I guess everybody is. But I remember being a manager and just looking back and the way that I behaved and my choices. Wow, I've really grown a lot. But I think some of these things you don't know until you're in it, and until you have some life experience under your belt, and you have also done so many parts of growing the business that you can relate to what they're going through and their struggles. And I just feel like leadership is such a growth edge for entrepreneurs and absolutely necessary to build a 7-figure business
It's very
and to
rare
maintain it.
for you to do both the growth, the build, the marketing, and the leadership, in my opinion. I think sometimes a
Yes.
lot of creative founders struggle with the leadership parts. It's really rare what you're doing. Tell me more about, so it sounds and it looks like you created your own IP or formula in the marketplace.
Mhm.
Tell me more about that development, who you serve, why you serve them, and what unique niche or problem you found, how you found it, because it's pretty interesting what you're doing.
Yeah, so I typically move people from out of the trap of the generalist or stagnant at specialization into expert authority. I focus on the ultra high ticket market, so meaning high 5 and 6 figure deals and targeting people that work with executives or who work with companies. I'll have help people that are business strategists put together $200,000 deals and sell them to organizations, or package up their one-to-one and sell it for 50,000 to an executive. I primarily work with business executive leadership, change management type of, or any kind of business consultant. And really what we focus on is the expert accelerator model. It's 5 systems that we put in place. One is your
Okay.
offer, that's your impact system, clearly defining who you serve. Most people have a lack of clarity around that.
Hmm.
As basic as it sounds, and it really holds them back. And we do a deep dive into pains and desires and understanding where they sit in the valley of pain and where they want to go, where is that mountain of possibility. And then we help them codify what is their solution that is going to help them get there fastest. So
Hmm.
their solution becomes the GPS and they become the Sherpa. And this is how they, and then we bundle that into your ultra high end offer. We
Yeah.
then help them with marketing, which is your influence system, helping them build expert positioning. So they move from a peer to peer and more of a peer to mentor level of perception in the marketplace,
Mm.
how to build an audience that is intimate but
It's
highly
mostly
engaged.
inbound, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and highly relevant. And then how to have the right messaging that is relevant, that captures attention. Then we help them put in their money system, which is sales. It's everything that happens before, during, and after a sales conversation, how to close, again, big tickets, whether it's a casual conversation with a CEO or whether it's a more formal slide deck presentation. How
Mhm.
do you do that? And how do you do it really well? How do you build systems and team for growth? This is your freedom system, putting the right butts in right seats, automate, delegate, move into a real, true CEO position. And then
Mhm.
finally, one of the most overlooked aspects is if you're selling high end, how do you do client delivery and how do you do it really well? And how do you do it at scale? So,
Yeah.
what are the back end infrastructure that needs to happen? What does onboarding look like? What is client management, which is a beast, especially when you start to scale? What does that look like? And how do you keep everyone happy and hitting their milestones, getting their results? How do you get all the engines of the business running at once so that you can scale and sustain your growth?
So that's it? That's all you do? That's
Yeah, that's it.
insane. Oh my God. You literally do from top to bottom to scale to business operations. That's phenomenal. I'm going to ask more nuanced questions here that I
Yeah.
think would be pretty cool. What do you think about the full, because I see what you're doing and I have so many questions and I love it. I absolutely love it because you're selling. The one key thing that I want to actually touch on
Mhm.
is that you focus on the inbound demand generation of an influencer because I think the market that you help people sell to, their number one thing is might feel like doubtful in what they're doing. They want certainty and they're buying a certain level of certainty at some level or some sort of outcome. Is that
Yes.
resonate? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And that's so expensive and that's so it has a it's expensive to do wrong. But my
Mhm.
question to you is, what do you think when it comes to delighting clients? Because at that price point, every experience has to feel like a wow factor. There has to be peak moments that you can manufacture or design or just
Mhm.
have. How do you align or see the statement of when you scale, sometimes client delivery goes down? I've worked with
Yes.
agencies online. That's the number key fear point. I don't think it has to be true, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my CEOs because I saw a CEO clients. I saw someone post that they think client delivery was the easiest part of scaling, and I laughed
No.
because I was like, No, it's not if you don't have your systems built. If you have your systems built and you have the right team to manage it. But I do feel like client delivery drops. It's rampant in the coaching and consulting world. They're
Yeah.
focused on acquisition so heavily. And I've seen it happen in other programs I've been in where the client delivery just fails and like coaches don't show up to calls, things get canceled. There's just so many things that break. So, absolutely, you do need to have tight client delivery in place. You need to keep everybody happy. You have to be very intentional about what you design from an experience standpoint, like you said, having key touch point person, having certainty in terms of scheduling, you're following through and making good on your promises. So, if someone has an experience you view externally through your marketing, and then they get on a sales conversation to check and see, are you congruent, are you who I think you are, because 80% of sales happen before a conversation even takes place.
Oh yeah.
So there's that alignment piece of sales. You need to carry that into the client
The
delivery
fulfillment.
experience.
100%.
They need to see you. If you're looking high end and all your materials, assets look great, they need to look good internally, right? It needs to be this seamless experience, and you have to hold people. I was like, it's like a newborn baby you're carrying home from the hospital with
Yeah.
that client, and take special care, especially in those first few months, to ensure that understand they have clarity. If they don't have clarity, they know where they can go to ask questions. They have all the resources and support available to them to get the results that they're seeking.
No, 100%. It's sometimes like there's a non-linear path where you look great because a lot of the programs focus on the sales and acquisition first. I mean, that's
Yes.
what I've seen a lot in the space in general, not just your specific niche, but I've always tried to discern like why is that? Because that's important and your business doesn't
Right.
live without it. But there's another side to it. And I feel like there's a few other factors, either the dopamine rush, people just want that. It's a desire that
Yes.
everyone has, but we always forget the client experience will maximize your actual future potential for new client acquisition.
That's it. Oh, I was going to say, as a follow up though, I purposely built my company and to not scale super fast, because
Mhm.
I saw it happening to colleagues around me where they just became, it's like they became so hungry and they're so fed by their ego. And then they grew really big and then their businesses blew up. They like totally
Mhm.
broke because they didn't take time to build the client delivery and the experience and the systems to support it. And so it's really important. I have also had a scene where people just get so hungry in that first year, and they get traction and then they forget that they've got to deliver. So they expect to double their growth the next year, but because they didn't deliver, they don't have client results to use as testimonials. If the old adage is true, the more people you help, the more will want your help. So if you get somebody trusts you and says,
Mm.
I'm giving you this money, you need to do everything in your power. You can't do it for them. I get that you can't make people do things, but everything in your power to ensure that they have really great results, because those results are really like the majority of the marketing that you're going to, because you can only ride, I know what I'm talking about so long.
And so
Gonna,
here's proof in the marketplace that this
it
actually
powers through.
works.
Totally.
No, I love
That's what
that.
people need to focus on. Get the proof, get the proof, get the proof. Like constantly get the proof. That's what people want.
It's fascinating, right? When I mean, you're scaling slow. And that's an antithesis to what the market teaches, like scale
I know.
fast, scale super, like put money on it. Like I think for some industries you have to, especially
Yes,
depending on the competing. I think
you
for
do.
us, or specifically what you're doing, it is the staircase. You build, stabilize, build, stabilize, build, stabilize. What are other things you go against the grain that you found that works well with you that's not traditionally bought?
That, and you said it, scale, sustain, because it is a dance, right? You're like, I've
Mm.
acquired, okay, now let me focus on this. Now I have space to acquire more. So scaling sustainably, taking a top-down approach. So I flip the model on its head, might have an ultra high-end model, and I teach my clients that versus, and I know, listen, the low ticket to high, mid ticket to high ticket, that's a model. It works. Obviously it
It's
works. It's
great.
not,
Yeah, it's a great market, but
is not for me, right?
yeah,
So know that rather than saying I'm selling the $57 bundle and then I'm going to sell you into the 5,000 and I'm going to sell you into 25,000, that some of my clients have tried those and I'm like, really? Okay, let's just get you selling $150,000
no, you're 100%
programs.
right. What made you switch that? What made you experience that? Because that's actually what I want to dive into.
It's a lot of work. I think people discount how much work it is. And we're bombarded by course creators, right? Everybody's,
Mhm.
hey, anybody can create a course. Most course creators are broke if they don't have a digital marketing background.
Yeah,
Because it's like, yeah, you got a course, but you got to have traffic, dude. And then
yeah.
we're going to get that traffic. And then you have to have, to me, it's way harder to sell off a landing page than it is a phone call.
Oh yeah, human to
Like,
human.
I mean, I'm like, you're trying to sell this 997 course. Give me a phone call and I will close somebody like that if it's the right person. And, I want to take them on as a client and all the other stars align,
Yeah,
right?
ethical. I get it. I know.
Yeah, and that would be, so the top down approach is one. Another one is ethics is huge for
Hmm.
me, and I reject 50% of the applications that come through. I do not want to work with everybody. I'm very selective about who I take on as a client. We have intimate experience, like I do all inclusive retreats with my clients, so I
Wow,
got to
that's
want to
cool.
spend time with them. And I also know that, oh man, for some people they're just taking on anybody, and it's, if they're not going to do the work and they're not the right fit, like that's going to cost you more time and money than that quick 5 or 10 grand or whatever you made off their
The
first
short-term
payment.
profit.
Another thing that I do is I do my own sales, which I know is like crazy
Really?
for some
Okay.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
not crazy, but I love this. That's
But that comes back to the
depends.
ethics.
Yeah, it depends where
Yeah.
you're at, right?
And I'm in the ultra high end space.
Yeah,
So if I'm working with a business owner and they're going to hand me a lot of money, having that conversation and making sure that, again, this is someone I want the relationship with is powerful. And I don't have a volume based business. And what I found is when you outsource sales, they are commission focused. So they become sharks. And we've all been on the other end of it where people are happy to sell you anything. And I don't like the way that feels. And sometimes and they start using NLP and all that. I don't use any of that. I don't use it. I have a very casual conversation. And if it's a fit, we move forward. And if it's not, I wish you well, but I protect my time and I highly vet. So my close rate is high. So by the time someone gets to me, there's
it's
a
a high probability.
high probability they're going to buy and they're going to invest with me at a really high level. And I've worked very intentionally to build that positioning in the marketplace. And can I do that forever? I don't know. It's worked so far. I'll put it that way.
No, I mean, you designed this and you also choose your stressors. And I think you've eliminated a substantial amount of stressors by focusing on top down and taking all the sales calls yourself. I think unique to you, I don't think it can be easily duplicated or modeled depending on the market. But
Yes.
I actually feel like this is a really smart and fun way to grow because then you get to decide the velocity of growth. You get to decide the types of people you work with. And even you said
Yes.
to yourself, I have to spend a retreat with my clients. If I don't like them, I was like, oh, it's going to be a burden. If I do like them, oh, it's going to be a blast.
Yeah. It's very intentional. Everything is very intentional.
I think one of the key fears or comments, because I've had clients who want to break into the Fortune 500, et cetera, et cetera. One of the key fears or questions is always that what you just mentioned. Oh, I need to get this outside salesperson, do the marketing or outreach sales, get appointments, book calls, and then loop me in. That's one approach. And I think we've seen that specifically from like the Chet Holmes playbook, which is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know if you can maybe demystify this for a lot of the audience around the anatomy of the sales calls. Because when we feel like, oh, this you're selling $250,000 deals, you're selling
Mhm.
high 5-figure deals. But when I feel like to me, it's similar when I
Yeah.
haven't done 6 figures, but it's similar to every sales call. But let's demystify that for a second.
It's not complicated, but guys, by the way. And I have clients who specifically, like, I have clients who are former C suite of big companies that
Mhm.
come to me. And so they are also talking and closing sales to C suite of big tech companies, for example. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need an outside salesperson unless you're trying to build an 8-figure company and a volume based business. Yeah, you're going to need that.
Mhm.
But if you're selling ultra high end, you're going to create instant trust with that business owner that has hold of the purse strings to invest. And that connection is everything. And so for me, it's not a long sales call. They're relatively short. I ask a handful of questions to understand. Again, my people I'm not getting on the phone with people who are like, who are you? Convince me. I don't get on the phone with people typically who are price shopping. People know that I'm legit. I have a ridiculous amount of social proof. They're
Mhm.
aware of all of that going into the sales conversation. And then I'm able to demonstrate and clearly articulate who I am, how I can help them, and what they're going to get. And with ultra high ticket, the value it trumps the investment. And that's how
Yeah.
you have to position it. When I have someone, even if someone hands me 100,000, I'm going to throw a number out there. It's if I'm going to double your growth and you're
Is
at
it worth it?
700,000, that's a no brainer. And so it's
Mhm.
all how you position it. It doesn't require tips or tricks or manipulating people. The more savvy a business person is, the less that stuff works.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh.
And this is very important for people to understand that's why so much marketing doesn't work on LinkedIn. It's because they're talking to people like they're dumb, like they're like the unsophisticated buyer. You need to understand when you're talking to someone that is a more savvy buyer, their relationship is going to type sales is going to work so much better. It's going to land better because they have everybody who wants their time, everybody who's trying to get a seat at the table, 5 minutes with them. They value time more than money. That's another important shift for people to understand for ultra high ticket. People who value money more than time don't have a lot of money. They have a lot of time on their hands. So
Mhm.
they're going to need a lot more education. They're going to want to watch a webinar, all of that. C-suite, they do not want to watch a webinar. They don't have they will laugh at you if you're like, sign up for my webinar. They value time more than money because time is their most precious commodity. If you can
Mhm.
help solve their problem, you need to show it in a very, very quick way. And that's why the sales conversations don't have to be long. And it works. I had a guy reach out, it's one of my top paying clients,
Mhm.
and he said, I don't think you can help me. This was on LinkedIn.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, just says straight up, I don't think you can help me. And I literally wrote, boom, here's great. You've reached this level. Here's some pitfalls, some things you should be aware of, or here's how I help my clients. I don't remember exactly what I said. And I bulleted like 8 things. He booked a call and invested 6 figures with me 2 weeks later, 45-minute call.
When you know the exact issues you're going through, because on the other person, and I know we're educating the audience, but I love
Yeah.
everything you're saying right now. You're spitting fire. When we educate them on their problems, it gives us the authority, though they've been
Boom.
through the gauntlet before. They've seen this.
And there's no BS. There's no tricks. There's no hoops to jump through. It's just very cut and dry. And if you
Mhm.
want to market to a higher caliber person, that's how you have to be. It doesn't mean you don't bring the heart into it. Of course, I'm connecting with them on a sales conversation, but it doesn't have to be hard. It's
Mm.
be real, cut to the chase, be transparent, be authentic. They can sense it. A CEO
Yeah.
of a company has very good awareness around people.
Oh yeah.
And so you just need to be real. Here's the problem here. And also, I will also say for your listeners is you have to be strong in your authority. And if someone pushes back and literally says, I don't think you can help me, don't just be like, oh, okay, you're right. I don't
Done.
think. Stand up and stand in your power, and then they will respect you. They'll be like, oh, maybe I do need to learn something from this person. And so there's so many things that you can learn from working with a higher caliber person, but sales do not have to be complicated. Sales should not be complicated. They should be very easy. And then again, if it's not a fit, it's just, hey, best of luck.
Nice and clean. Nice and clean.
Nice and clean. Yeah.
What a concept, right? That's one of my good friends, like a fractional CMO, and he's like, when you say something that's like really profound, like, wait, it's just I have to be ethical. Like, what a concept, and
Right.
it's incredible. But no, I love, you be speaking from experience and helping demystify these things. I have one other question for you before we
Yes.
we close out, but like specifically on LinkedIn, I get a lot of inbound messages. We
Yeah.
are taught through the outbound spray and pray. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the inbound, just like content generation? How do you marry both to be effective? Specifically, because I again, going back to, oh, in order for me to break through the C-suite, or in order for me to break through this, we need to do outreach. We need to do like lumpy mail, direct mail. We need to get appointments, reach
Yes.
out to them, phone call, like all these sequences and all these tools, all these sequences. I'd love to get like your perspective on that.
There is though one way, and I have very clear what I always do unto others as I would like them to do unto me. That's my motto. So I don't scrape emails and add people to my list. I know it's taught, people do it, that's their thing. I don't do that, and I don't do cold calling, and I work with people who do, and that's their choice. For me, you need my business. I do a combination of inbound and outbound. You have to do both simultaneously in this day and age. If you're just doing content, who's going to see it?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're really good at going viral. So you need an audience. You need to be active at growing your audience. And if you're just doing outbound, but you have nothing to teach and to show them, to educate them, you're not going to convert. So I do believe you need to be actively growing your audience. It needs to be the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not growing for quantity, for vanity metrics. Your content needs to be quality. I'd rather have one great piece of content that goes out today per day than 4 things that don't really tell people anything.
Mm-hmm.
You need to mix understanding authority and demonstrating authority with speaking to their pain. I will tell you hands down that my posts that convert the best are the most triggering and do get the worst engagement, but they
Oh,
get the
really?
most book sales calls. Yeah, because think about it. And this is really important for those marketing to the C-suite. If you're like, CEO, your leadership sucks, here's what you need to do about it, or whatever, you call them out, they're not going to like it.
Yeah.
They're not going to comment. They may not even answer you in the DM. CEOs often won't, but they'll appear on your calendar. So you need to have that mix and not be afraid to be edgy and to understand that maybe you need to sit where you sit on the spectrum of influence and be a bit provocative, right? But you also need to do authority. And then as far as outreach, don't assume like anybody who's, I can help you get to 20K a month. It's like you might be targeting a coach. Like my client that hired me, he was like, what are you talking about? I'm already doing 100,000 a month. So if you lead with assumptions in the DM, that's not a good thing. If you try to do the tricks like, hey, you're just in time for my webinar.
Oh yeah. And then
If
it's
you're, yeah, or if you're asking them to do something for you, it's such a weird thing when people ask me, they're like, hey, will you buy my book or will you endorse me? So don't ask somebody to do something for you, lead with value. And
mm-hmm.
that's what this is all about. The name of the game for building trust and credibility in the marketplace is leading with value. If you want to do the tricks that grab quick sales, they're typically not the best clients. But if you want to play the long game and get really high caliber people, quality people, lead
Mhm.
with value in the DM, provide authority, but also know how to trigger in the content.
100%. Such a mature way to approach marketing and sales, and I think it's to see it through your lens, and also to be able to understand not short term. Don't think about the short term gains. It feels good.
Mm.
It's a good reward system, etc. But to be able to shift that focus, and I think you mentioned it. You did this early on, looking at the long term. What does the long term exposure look like? How and
Yes.
as simple as like how am I sold to? How do I like to buy stuff? Not because someone mails me 20 things on LinkedIn inbox and we booked a 15-minute chat, right?
And it's such a great point, and I will tell you that people are watching you. So people think, "Oh, no one's watching." Yes, they are. I had someone that just bought from me. She'd watched me for 2 years. I was like, why did you buy afterwards?" And she said, "You're consistent." She said, "Every other coach out there, they spin off all these things constantly. It's, oh, here's my product bundle, or I'm going to market to this person now. Now I'm marketing to that person." And she was like, "You're steady. You always were talking to me. You didn't change." And so many
Mhm.
coaches and consultants destroy their positioning because they're constantly chasing the next thing or trying to spin the next thing out. And it really hurts those high quality buyers that are watching to see, like, are you consistent? Are you holding that position? Are you standing in your power and authority and not wavering?
How did you know you had the right hook? How did you know you had the right captivated audience? Because I think that's such a key thing that we always see shiny object syndrome to an extent where there is that balance of evolving your
Mhm.
offer, evolving your business to fit market needs, and
Tweaking, but not overhauling like you
not
see people
pivoting
do
dramatically every
all
6
the
months.
time. Like, exactly.
How are
I
you confident? What made you confident so that when we're seeing it in our businesses or our listeners are like, I have an idea. What is that one spark that triggers that anchor? I'm going to anchor here and just go.
when you're getting the dream clients who come in and effortlessly buy. Like,
Yeah.
you're on it, stay there. And again, you can still clean up. Like, I remember there was a time as I was pivoting, I deleted 3,000 connections on LinkedIn. I was like, you're not my market anymore. Get
Dang.
out. Because they're taking a time and tension away. So you can still do cleanup. But once you're suddenly get these clients and you're like, I want more of these, what did you do and say to get that person? What was
Mhm.
your marketing around that time? As soon as someone books a sales call, the first thing I do is go look at what I posted that day and the day before. And I can
Smart.
tie exact calls and why people bought. And they will even sometimes say, you triggered the hell out of me with that post because you said this and I've been there. And I know people just like that. And I will go and look, and I'm looking at numbers and I'm looking for validation. I always ask people how long they've been following me during a sales conversation
Mhm.
because I want to know. I want to know what's working in my marketing. So be curious, track, measure.
The best type of attribution, just ask. I love
Yeah,
it.
there you go.
Jessica, for our audience out there, was the best place for people to, one, thank you for being on, and two, learn more about you and see your work.
Well, definitely go to jessicayarbrough.com/influence and download my 33-page guide on the ladder of influence. Follow me on YouTube and absolutely hit me up on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request and let me know you heard me on the show.
Awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes. Jessica, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.